This program was produced by and first broadcast on Radio Kidnappers, a community access media station. Thanks to New Zealand On Air for making this type of programming possible.
Hi, Andrew Austin here, and welcome to my show, Austin On Air, right here on Radio Kidnappers, the voice of Hawke's Bay. My guest today is Martin Williams, who was recently elected onto the Hawke's Bay Regional Council. Good morning, Martin, and thanks for taking the time to talk to me.
My pleasure, and good morning, Andrew.
Martin, firstly, congratulations on your election.
Thank you very much.
This is your second attempt. You were unsuccessful in 2016. How does it feel to be finally elected to the Napier constituency of the Regional Council?
Well, it was a relief, and there is a real sense of arrival in that I've been wanting to make a contribution of this kind and secure a role of this type for the purpose for most of my working life. I originally retrained in the law after doing a science degree, not necessarily to become a lawyer, but because of the good use to which I might be able to put that knowledge and understanding. So, this has been a long time coming for me. I ended up being a lawyer for 25 years and exclusively, focusing on my clients' aspirations and objectives, and it's great to be able to add something to that now in terms of my working life, but equally by way of contribution to the region. So, huge relief, great sense of arrival, but the place that I've arrived at by way of destination is itself a journey, and I'm very much looking forward to it.
Yeah, now, 2016, part of your campaign was built around being in favour of the Ruataniwha Dam being built, and many felt that you lost to Paul Bailey because he was anti the dam, and I suppose Napier voters weren't happy with the way the Regional Council had, or the lack of consultation, I suppose, on the dam. This time you're in and he's out. Without the dam as the issue, what do you think made the difference? What did you learn from that experience?
Well, I think I really got boxed in by the dam in that last campaign, and people couldn't see past it through to what else that I had to offer.
Yeah.
And I made a very determined effort this time to really define my own brand and my own vision for the campaign and for being elected, if that happened, rather than being defined by a particular issue that certainly dominated the 2016 campaign. I found it quite difficult to transition from being a legal advocate for the dam to the political realm at that stage.
Yeah.
And I think the consequence was, as you've described, and I certainly learned from that, really just to be a bit more true to myself and let people see me for what I believe I am.
And do you regret having supported the dam at that time?
Well, all I will say about it is that you could not believe all those things said against the dam were true and still support it.
Yeah.
Large-scale water storage was not on my agenda in the campaign and is not on my agenda now. But I don't hold any different views than what I said at the time about that proposal when it was on the agenda. It's something that I gave a lot of thought to. I had quite a deep understanding of the issues. Equally, I harboured some quite significant concerns about aspects of it which I knew were troubling people within the region. And so any support I had for it was highly qualified. It needed to be subject to strict environmental limits, and it needed to not put the port at risk of being sold. Ironic that the latter has happened without the former, but there you go. I've moved on. I've learned from the experience, and I've learned a lot about Napier in the result as well, which is the constituency that I've been put in place to represent.
Well, we'll get on to some of those issues. You touched on the port and that in a little while, but from what I hear, one of the ways you moved on immediately after the election result is that the last time is that you climbed Mount Kilimanjaro. Is that true?
That is true. That has been on my sort of aspiration list since I first saw it, actually, out a bus window as a backpacker back in the early 90s. So that was unfinished business for me. And what I realised on not getting elected last time was that I could mix that disappointment up with more time and space to enjoy and experience the teenage years of my two children, and they're all focused on them, which I made sure I did, but also gave me the space to cross that one off. So that was a big challenge. My wife joined me, and we did a lot of planning, and it was hugely exciting by way of accomplishment. I must say, during the last campaign, that's the 2019 campaign, whenever I sort of got a bit worn down or worn out, I looked at a couple of the photos, the ones that I recently posted on Facebook about summiting Kilimanjaro for inspiration, just reminding myself that if you put your mind to it and you keep going one foot in front of the other, you can actually get there. Well,
some might suggest that going on to the council, you've got Everest before you, not Kilimanjaro.
Yeah, although but perhaps I haven't reached the summit, but it was certainly the summit that I was climbing during the campaign. Sometimes the hardest part of a mountain expedition was actually coming back down. That's been pointed out to me as well. But look, I wouldn't describe it as Everest. I think some of the challenges that face regional councils in this current age of climate change and other issues are just immensely profound. But if you are focused and you are pragmatic and you apply common sense, we can meet those challenges, and we've got a fantastic lineup around the council of talent and people focused on sort of different priorities and aspects of a combined and shared vision, which I think means we will be successful in confronting some of those challenges. So, yeah, I'm hugely excited about it, and the council that I've been elected to be part of. I wouldn't describe it as Everest. It is certainly the next challenge for sure.
Yeah. Now, Rex Graham has been elected for another term, and I think it was quite unanimous. And previous councils, you had us versus them on both sides, really, and the dam was responsible for some of that. And some of those people, obviously, you sort of disagreed with on the dam. How do you think you're confident you're going to be able to work with them?
Yeah, my number one priority, my first priority, and I guess a temporal sense, the first thing I would like to work on is ensuring that we understand each other sufficiently as councillors to be able to respect difference, to be able to have mature conversations where we bring different perspectives to the table and actually end up with a better decision. But very much on an operating model where it's all 9 councillors on the job. We need every mind on the job if we are to confront some of these challenges that I just referred to. So one of my main motivating, I guess, reasons for standing both times was that I was dismayed at this type of Wellington-style politics, which had become commonplace at the regional council over 2 or 3 terms now.
Yeah.
Rightly or wrongly, real or perceived, but I am determined that that's not the council that I want to be part of, and I also understand that in electing Rex and Rick, they are equally resolved to ensure that we're a fully working 9-councillor entity, and to put that type of divisiveness behind us. And those big issues are gone. The port sale is also gone. So we have, as Rick put it yesterday, got a bit of a clean slate.
Yeah.
When I say yesterday, I mean at our first public meeting on the 30th of October, after we were all sworn in.
Yeah.
Great opportunity for all of us to work together in a new and refreshed way.
Yeah, because some would say that you and Craig Foss, who's also on the council, sort of upset the apple cart a bit because there were sort of there seemed to be a group of councillors who all were working together, and that and Craig has in the past, Craig Foss has said that it's not a cabinet, it's a sort of group working together and issue by issue. So you don't think there's going to be a situation where it's you and him versus the rest?
Not at all. I think there will be times when there are different individual minds, aligned in different ways on each issue, precisely as Craig framed it. But I don't think it's going to fall down to neatly defined fault lines.
Yeah.
One of the propositions that I advanced with my red, green, and blue billboards throughout the last two campaigns is that I truly and firmly believe, as I say, Wellington-style politics belongs in Wellington. My ideology has got nothing to do with it. My politics has got nothing to do with it. We're there to represent the region. Our ratepayers have got all sorts of different political views and ideologies. And at the end of the day, we're there to represent them, but deal with issues that are basically ecology or science or engineering driven. They've got nothing to do with left or right wing.
Yeah.
We're not rolling out welfare here or criminal justice policy or education or health. We're dealing with the natural environment. I believe the way we do that and the way we protect the natural environment has to be socially and economically enabling. So I just am determined to ensure those type of fault lines don't emerge. I'll work very hard to ensure that they don't, and to work alongside everyone. But again, respecting those differences, harnessing those differences, and using them as a positive force. That's how I see it going forward. I mean, I am of a different, I guess, base political position than Craig Foss. He's been part of a national government. I once stood for the Green Party. And if I were to enter, central government politics again, it's probably only the Green Party that I would ever stand for. I'm not saying that I will do that, but, the fact that I've got a different base political position at central government level doesn't mean that I can't work with Craig or any of the other councillors.
Yeah, that's very interesting to hear. And you have said that you want more time spent on good policy and less time on bad politics. I suppose that's right. What you're saying. And then also your campaign slogan was straight up for a change. Is that what you mean in that, get to grips with the issues no matter what the politics are, really?
Yes, I mean, I was also... that was part of it. And saying that what you see is what you get with me. I have no lobby group behind me. I don't represent any particular industry sector, like the orchard lobby, for example, which has been strongly behind a number of the councillors for some time. I don't represent big business. I don't represent an iwi group. I don't represent environmental groups.
You do have some powerful friends, though. I know Andy Lowe has come out and publicly endorsed you and backed you.
Yes, and I'll come back to that. So, my point was that I represent each and all of those interests. And so my straight-up proposition was that on no strings attached. What you see is what you get. And for a change was really on the idea that I think, a fresh perspective to the council, putting that type of combative style council scenario behind us. Yes, Andy Lowe was one of my supporters. He's been a client of mine. I've worked with him around Ocean Beach and the Cape Sanctuary project, and very proudly so. That's an absolutely fantastic biodiversity initiative.
Yes.
And biodiversity is very dear to me. I've also worked with Andy on the Iona Hills subdivision in Havelock North, helping to provide much needed housing to the district and to accommodate the growth this region has enjoyed, in the last 10 years or so. So, yes, I was very proud to have his support, but I don't think that was coming from any political perspective. I would leave that there.
No, fair enough. So, in terms of change, what do you want change at the Regional Council?
Firstly, that working together model.
Yeah.
And I think that's what's going to happen. In terms of my priority, what I'm most interested in confronting in a way that is perhaps not only a leader for New Zealand but globally is a new planning framework that enables us to successfully and sensibly tackle and confront climate change. Climate change is my number one priority. And by that, I don't just mean what local authorities are doing now, which is allowed to be under the Resource Management Act and only adapting to climate change, which is, coastal erosion measures or managed retreat or making sure our stormwater pipes are big enough or replanting hill slopes so that sediment doesn't run off into rivers. Those things are incredibly important. But what I'm talking about is actually a new planning framework such that we can become, as the Council has pledged to be, the first net carbon zero region in the country by 2040, perhaps more realistically by 2050 in line with the Zero Carbon Act. Now, these are my views. I need to preface that this is not a council position, but I campaigned on the idea of making every policy in the planning books of the council, whether it be on infrastructure or land use or water allocation or protection of the versatile soils or whatever it might be, biodiversity, you name it. Every single policy or policy chapter directed at the primary objective of reducing our carbon footprint as a region. Now, I think if you did that, you would at the same time still achieve all of the other benefits you're looking at in terms of biodiversity improvement, in terms of keeping sediment out of our waters and out of our marine environment, protecting our versatile soils, and ensuring sustainable water allocation. That would all flow. But you would make the primary purpose of everything, well, which of these policies in the mix is actually the best in terms of getting us ready as a region to be net carbon neutral, getting us ready as a region to be a world that's independent of reliance on fossil fuels. What type of road networks and transport networks do we design for that purpose? Do we do things like telling developers instead of, they have to have car parks with their new supermarkets or apartment blocks that they're not allowed to, and then diverting that extra money into a public transport fund? Do we say instead of having minimum lot sizes, which are really there just to make people mow lawns and sort of look pretty, and actually say to people, no, maximum lot size, you can't be any bigger than 300 metres squared rather than you have to be at least 600 metres squared, which just means you sprawl out over our versatile soils and you have to drive further to get to work.
Yeah.
So you might flip some things, but whatever your policy settings were, they are primarily and exclusively, well, not exclusively, but primarily focused on confronting climate change. And I would be just so excited to be able to work with my fellow councillors to achieve a new planning framework that would be binding across the region and therefore have to be implemented by the other local authorities to achieve that. So that would actually give teeth to the zero carbon bill.
Yeah.
It would mean we could be honest about it in terms of the objective of getting there. There is a law change needed to the RMA to ensure that councils have got the express power to do what I've just said, so it's contingent on that. But I know the Resource Management Review Panel is looking at that very issue, and I know that the Minister for the Environment is again quite alive to the idea of bringing that ability into the Resource Management Act expressly, so that my dream in that regard could be realised.
Yeah, well, that's quite a fulsome answer there, and we are just want to move on a bit because we are running out a bit of time there. But because you have said that you want to explore opportunities to invest in social and physical infrastructure that sustains the economy and a return that can be directed to environmental projects. So, so let's see. And a whole range of things are important to you, including tourism and things like that.
Yeah, that's right. I mean, the way we protect the environment, as I say, needs to be socially and economically enabling. So the way we tackle climate change needs to be as well.
Yeah.
When you replant marginal lands or eroding hill slopes, we need to make sure we don't displace productive farms. If you build, if you plant a forest, build a sawmill. If you are looking at the right tree for the right place, what other opportunities for economic well-being are there? Carbon credits, biodiversity credits, manuka honey, whatever it might be. And so it's sort of leveraging off your investments in the environment to ensure that, we've still got a job and a viable and indeed thriving regional economy.
And just moving on to the port sale, a portion of the port was put up for sale by the previous council to allow for growth and expansion. So what's your view on that? I mean, are you comfortable with it? Do you worry that we could see a thing where next minute we look, we don't have the port anymore, or are you confident that enough checks and balances are in place that it will only ever be a minority share?
I'll try and be more brief. One, I'm not a big fan of asset sales, never was. Lived through the 80s, don't like them. That's my base position. If you play Monopoly, you don't sell Mayfair and Park Lane, or you'll never get a return on the next roll of the dice or a round of the board. Two, the port has been sold, or a 45% stake in it has been. So that's just the reality.
Yeah.
And I could see why the council was doing it in terms of being, reduced reliance or eggs on one basket and freeing up cash for an environmental focus. So now that we've got that balance sheet improvement with the overall net increase in the value of the port from the sale or following the sale, I can see that some of those intended benefits have been realised. We need to make sure those investments are made with the proceeds for environmental purposes in a way that has those social and economic benefits. But the thing that really concerns me is to ensure that the protections for the other and remaining 55% of the port are secure. I'm not convinced that they are yet watertight. For example, if the port needs to raise more capital, the two non-independent directors appointed by the regional council to the port will have a fiduciary obligation to that port, and if the case is there for raising more capital, they will do so, and if the regional council doesn't chip in to an equivalent extent as the rest of the market, its share will be diluted. Now, that may be a theoretical scenario, but it's one that I'm alive to, and I want to make sure that the majority position is secured and 100% watertight. So that could be a bit of a work in progress.
Is that going to be something you're going to address almost immediately with the council?
I don't know about immediately. I don't think there's an immediate risk about that. I think I need to get my feet under the desk. There's quite an empire in there that I need to become more familiar with, and I think it would be, I need to, I guess, find my place in order to have that conversation. But it is something that's most definitely and firmly on my agenda.
Oh, well, good luck with that. Just quickly touching on water storage, and we've literally got a minute, so just quickly on water storage, and that you say that you supported the dam, but big water storage like that, options, isn't necessarily the way to go. Just in a couple of sentences, what do you think is?
Well, look, I'll keep an open mind on everything. I've told you my starting position, but there are smaller scale water storage propositions, including on the Glazebrook farm, that have been very generously advanced and are going to be essential for aquifer recharge and for sustaining not future expansion in rural industry, but actually what's there now. Under the new tank plane change allocation rules, water's going to be really tight, and we're going to have to be really creative about water storage. So I'm open to that as well, but I think the reality is it's likely to be more small scale as a consentable proposition than large scale as we've seen in the past in this country, underpinning our renewable energy generation capacity.
Now, I presume that you're going to continue practicing as a lawyer, because obviously council is supposed to not be a full-time job, even though some see it as being one. How are you going to avoid any conflict of interests in that?
Very carefully, and my principal focus would be on work outside the region.
Yeah.
I think that the market will decide the extent to which I get briefed on what might be called district council matters, land use cases, subdivisions, that sort of thing, that don't involve a regional council consenting dimension. So that's going to be a case by case. It's quite a unique proposition. I don't see any conflicts. I will declare when I've got any history with someone that's involved in a council decision as a party or affected by a council decision in the future, but I'm going to have to work that out, case by case as time goes on.
Well, Martin Williams, we wish you well in the future, and I'm sure it's going to be an interesting journey for you, and hopefully you can add some value to the council. And thank you for your time today.
Well, thank you for your time, Andrew, and it's been a great privilege to have the chance to share some of that. And I'm very much looking forward to the next 3 years.
Excellent. And to the listeners, we'll see you next time. Thank you.
This program was produced by and first broadcast on Radio Kidnappers, a community access media station. Thanks to New Zealand On Air for making this type of programming possible.